We're doing a bathroom renovation, and one of the most important parts of this bathroom renovation is to have a floor that we really like. So we're going with a black hexagon porcelain tile. So these tiles are really scratch resistant, they're stain resistant, they're very durable. It's 5/16 of an inch porcelain, which is different from what we're used to working with, which is ceramic tile, and porcelain is much harder and much more stronger. So the typical tool I would be using is my tile cutter, which just scores and snaps, and that works great for the ceramic tiles. However, porcelain tiles are much stronger, and it's much more difficult for me to snap them that way. So I went online, we were kind of researching all the different tools that could be used to cut a porcelain tile. So I know a wet tile saw is kind of what professionals use. It's pretty quick, you get straight lines. We were trying to avoid using a wet tile saw as much as possible, mostly because I didn't want to buy a tool that I was only going to use like once a year, if that. And it's very messy, it's bulky, it's kind of a pain to work with, so we were hoping we could use something more compact and easy to work with. The first tool that we checked out was just a higher end version of a tile cutter. So this is also going to score and then snap the tile. It was advertised as having a tungsten carbide cutting wheel. It should be able to cut porcelain tile up to almost half an inch thick, so I was very optimistic that it would work because that's what it said it could do. However, when we tried it, I scored it once, and when I tried to snap it, it was just flexing the metal bars and the tile wasn't giving at all, so I even scored it a second time, and then when I applied weight, I was just afraid I was going to break this whole thing open. So I don't think this tool is the one for the job. I'm kind of disappointed that it didn't live up to the claims, so we're going to have to find another tool for this job. There's also this Nifty Tool that we found online that's also a tile cutter. It has that same cutting blade as well as the clamp for breaking the tile, but without the frame, that gives you a lot more flexibility to do different shaped cuts as well as different lengths of cuts. It's advertised as being able to do thin tiles, glass tiles, ceramic tiles, porcelain tiles. We were under the impression that it would work well for us because we do have a thicker, more difficult tile. However, whenever I used the tool, I followed the directions very carefully from the advertiser, and I was still unable to get this tool to cut our tile, so I'm going to say it fell short of our expectations. In the end, the angle grinder ended up being the best tool for the job. I used my tile cutting tool just to score lines, so I would have a white straight line that would be easy for me to follow. And when I break out the angle grinder, what I do is I cut a very shallow cut, which is essentially just trimming that black surface, and that gets me minimal chip out. And as I do multiple passes through, I try to stay away from that original line and keep that first line nice and fresh and avoid the chip out as much as possible. So I'll do multiple passes, and maybe once I'm about 75% of the way through, the tile ends up just snapping off. And then as touch-up work, I like to just trim off that rough edge, and I put a little bit of a bevel so that the top edge is protruding out a little bit further than the bottom edge, just so that when I butt this up against a wall or something, I don't have to worry about that rough edge pushing the tile out. Angle grinders are pretty much the only tool for the job whenever you're doing odd shaped cuts. So here I'm cutting a circle for my bathroom toilet flange. Since I couldn't use the tile cutter to score that line, I ended up using a silver Sharpie, so that way it would stand out against the black tile, and then just very carefully going around and kind of using the same tactic of doing a shallow cut first and then pulling back and doing deeper cuts later. Kind of the only downsides I see to using an angle grinder are, number one, that it takes quite a bit longer, because you can't just grind very aggressively or else the blade will overheat. And you also have to have a very steady hand. If your hand is shaking, then chip out or crooked lines are much more possible. I was pretty happy that we were able to do a pretty good job cutting the porcelain tile with just the angle grinder, which I already owned. That made this project a lot easier, and then I don't have any extra tools laying around. If any of you guys have any advice on cutting porcelain tile, please let us know down in the comments below. And that's everything for today. Thanks, guys.